Hi guys, just going to do a quick sound check and then we're going to get started in 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, we're going to get started. So welcome to today's session, which is all around using Microsoft 365 to build forms and using Power Automate to automate the responses for the feedback forms. So my name is Dougie Wood. I'm a solution architect here at Balto. And predominantly my background has been in building document solutions as well as digital transformation, and I lead the development team here at Balto. Today, we're going to be taking a little look at a scenario of building a customer feedback form. So maybe it's like at the end of a project, or it's an end of sort of customer service kind of feedback on something that you've sold, and you're wanting to send that out as an external form and then capture that kind of feedback. So we're going to take a little look at what is Microsoft Forms. To achieve that, we're going to be using the Microsoft 365 product known as Forms. And then we're going to take a little look at a bit of a demonstration on how you can create your own feedback forms. Then we're going to take a look at Power Automate. Now, for those of you not familiar with Power Platform, Power Automate allows you to build workflows for doing things like automatically sending email notifications or Teams messages or automating certain business processes. So we're going to look at how we actually create notification using Power Automate for that as well. There's a slide around some useful resources and some materials which will help you get started by doing these sort of things, and then there'll be a little bit of time for Q&A at the end. But really, today's key takeaways are around how to create a Microsoft form, how to share the Microsoft form externally, and how to trigger Power Automation based on form submissions. So the first thing is, what is Microsoft Forms? So Forms allows you to collect the data needed in order to run and grow your business. They can be used for anything from customer satisfaction to employee feedback. So Forms can be used for both internal and external use. So it might be that you're wanting to create some kind of internal survey or sort of feedback on something like a campaign internally, but it also might be something you wanted to send out externally as well. So basically, Microsoft Forms is Microsoft's answer to SurveyMonkey or something like that, one of those third-party kind of products. So there's a lot of people that I work with who are using third-party products at the moment. And actually, once they've seen Microsoft Forms, they realize actually they could be saving quite a lot of money by ditching the third-party products such as SurveyMonkey and taking on board and using Microsoft Forms because they're already in Office 365. They're already paying for the licenses which give you all of this functionality. So Forms will allow things like branching logic. So something that we're going to take a look at today is actually dependent on certain responses and things like that inside of the form. You might want to branch the sort of questions that you're asking them. So as an example, it might be if say as part of your feedback form, somebody's saying that they're not happy, you might branch them down a route of sort of questioning to say, well, why aren't you happy? What's the details of that? Or if they are happy, you might want to say, okay, well, tell us what we did great or something like that. They're also externally shareable. So the key thing about this is that you can share this with anyone you like. And the forms are all sort of, as you can see here, available on sort of desktop tablets, as well as mobile phones as well. So it's all nice and responsive. And easy to use. And those people you're sharing it to, they don't have to have Office 365, they don't have to have any additional licenses, and you don't have to pay anything more to share that externally with them. There are some basic kind of real-time charts that get automatically generated and some reports, and all the data is actually stored and collected inside of Forms as a product itself, but you can easily export that then into Excel. So if you wanted to do your own kind of analysis or build your own charts from Excel, that's something that you could easily achieve inside of Microsoft Forms as well. As I said before, it's accessible from any device through a browser, and it's all nice and easy to access through a mobile kind of device as well. One of the sort of questions I often get asked about Microsoft Forms is, well, what's the difference between using Microsoft Forms and Power Apps? So again, if you're not really familiar with the Power Platform, Power Apps is a way of designing and building mobile kind of applications. Now, a lot of people would tend to use Power Apps for building kind of forms, feedback forms, things like that. But there's a couple of reasons why you would use Forms instead. So Forms is a lot easier to use. So for the actual people creating the forms, it's much simpler, much easier to put together a form. So you don't necessarily, it's all 100% drag and drop, whereas Power Apps does rely on a certain level of kind of knowledge of low code. And also Power Apps itself, so Canvas Power Apps are not externally shareable, not in the same way that the Microsoft Forms are, where we could easily share this with anybody. So Microsoft Forms really, it's if you wanted to create something that's quick and relatively simple as a sort of form, Microsoft Forms is perfect for that. And also if you're looking at sort of externally sharing as well, then definitely Microsoft Forms is the way to go. We're going to look at a bit of a scenario. So this is building like a customer service feedback form. So typical kind of feedback forms are kind of sort of asking about maybe the data, the use of the service, were you satisfied or not, collecting sort of comments, feedback, and general details so that you could get in touch with that person following them submitting that feedback form. So the first thing we're going to take a look at doing to build this is actually going into Microsoft Forms. So if I just jump into here, so Microsoft Forms, as I was saying, it's a product of Office 365. So we can get to it just by going to office.com, and then on the app launcher, we can select Microsoft Forms on the left-hand side, and this is going to take you to the Forms homepage. So the Forms homepage is going to show all the previous kind of forms that you've previously created, and we can create a brand new form by clicking this new form button across the top. That's going to take us into our form editor. Now this looks fairly blank at the moment. The first thing we're going to want to do is give our form a name, so we can give it a title. So I might want to call this my customer feedback form. And then a bit of a description. So the description is going to show us kind of like a smaller kind of area of text or something like that. So we could put something like we would love to hear from you and how we did, or something like that. So you can put a little bit of text underneath that, and that's the way it'll kind of look then to the end user. Now underneath this, we've then got add new. And you can also see there's like a little lightning bolt here. Now, the lightning bolt is actually sort of driven by kind of a bit of AI, really, that it's trying to pick up on what I've actually entered so far. And it does get more refined, the more questions and things like that that you add in. But you can see, because I've already put in customer feedback form, it's already sort of picking up on other forms that I've created in the past, like webinar feedback form, and it's picking up kind of some of the questions I previously added. So that will actually get more refined as I kind of move through. But you can see also, I've also got the options here. If I just click away and click back to add new, you can see I've got some options here for adding kind of fields to this form. Now they're all reasonably simplistic. So as I say, if you're kind of familiar with Power Apps and things like that, Power Apps has got a lot more kind of functionality to it. The benefits of this is it really is simple to use. So you can see here we've got things like a choice field. So I can add a choice here. And this might be, say, for example, did we do a good job? And then you can see here, again, a bit of AI is kind of kicked in, and it's giving me suggested options of what I could use. So I might want to say yes and no. And there we've got a couple of options there for us. We can also select if it's a multi-answers. So we can actually select, obviously in this case, it's not going to make sense, but if it was a choice field that was selecting maybe different types of products or services that you're offering that people are providing feedback on, you could ask them to select multi-answer. You can also make it required, which means that they can't progress on through the form unless they've actually submitted an answer for that particular question. So other types of fields we've got plain text. So this is perfect for if you were, say, just putting in sort of what's your name, what's your email address, phone number, that sort of thing. We've got ratings, so we can have sort of either a star rating or a number-based rating, as well as different levels that as well. So you can have it between kind of 1 to 10 in that particular way. We've got date, so this might be what one was the date of the particular sort of service that person purchased from you or something like that. And we've also got a couple of other options in here as well. So we've got things like ranking. So if you wanted to kind of say, sort of, if you wanted to rank us sort of for in a particular kind of order. And the other thing as well, which is quite commonly used, is this file upload. Now, file upload in itself, when you first add it in here, will actually say that it's going to create something inside my OneDrive. Now, depending on the Microsoft form, at the moment, I'm creating the Microsoft form in my own kind of personal area of forms. So if I just go back a step to Microsoft Forms, you can see I've got kind of my own kind of area inside of Microsoft Forms. So what this will do is it means this any attachments to this particular form that's submitted will go directly into my own OneDrive. So a little bit of an example of what that will look like inside of OneDrive. It'll automatically create a folder for you called apps. And then inside there will be a folder called Microsoft Forms. And then within there, you'll see any kind of previous forms that you've created and any responses when you go into them. You'll then see the attachments which have been automatically uploaded into that particular area as well. So a key thing to sort of note though about attachments though is that it's only available for internal use. It's something that is not something that is working externally. So there we go. So click OK. So those are the main kind of things which build up our kind of form. Now, the form at the moment is actually just kind of one page, or what Microsoft refer to as a section. Now we can build up multiple sections on the page by clicking on the Add New, and then on the drop down, you can see we've got this section option here. Now by clicking on that, will then you will see I've now got two different sections. So I've got section 1 and I've got section 2. Now, there's a couple of reasons why you might want to do that. One, if you just wanted, say, for example, if you've got, say, 20 or 30 questions or something like that to ask them, you probably don't want it all on one page because it's going to sort of be something that's going to take a long time to kind of fill out. And the overall user journey is much better when you've got multiple pages, and you can then break those sections out into multiple kind of titles as well. So you might want to say this is sort of general details, whereas this is more kind of sort of product specific details or something like that, that those people are filling out for you. Also, this is where you can then use branching to sort of build that. Now, in true Blue Peter style, I've actually got one that I made earlier, which is my customer service feedback form. So I've broken this down out and I've added a couple of different fields in here. So you can see I've got a section here which I've called your details. So I've added the person's name as a sort of name field. I've added the email address. So this is where the person will enter their email address and their phone number, as well as a date field to say, please tell us the date that you used our service. Now I've then got a section 2. So this is the next page. So once they fill out this page, they're then going to go on to this particular section down here. So this is where we'll say rate our service, and I've used the rating field here for overall rating our service. I've used the choice field to say, was our service provided to you in an accessible manner, yes or no? And then I've also got this, was there an issue with our service? Now you'll notice that this is a required field because I want to know the answer from was there any particular issue with the service? And this is when I can use branching logic to then split off. So you'll now notice I've also got a section here which is section 3, which is what I'm going to use that if they are unhappy. So basically, if there was an issue, I'm going to bounce them through to this section. And I've got a question here to say, please share additional comments or details of your issue. And I've also got section 4, which is obviously great success. And we would ask them to give us a quote. Now, the way the branching works is when you select a particular question, and then you click on the 3 dots across the bottom, you can see here we've got this add branching option. Now, when we click on add branching, it will recognize that there is 2 different answers to this particular question. Now, what we can then do is you've got this option and say go to. Now, if it's yes, so was there an issue with our service, we want to bounce them through to section 3, which is apologies. So you can see when I click on this drop down here, it's going to show me all the different sections and all the different kind of areas of my form that I can possibly jump someone to. Or I can choose to end the form at that point. And now I'm in this kind of branching mode. You can see here, all the bottom of the different sections also have their own kind of sort of options. You can see here, the end of section 1, it's going to go to section 2, which is rate our service. It's going to jump us down into this area down here. So now the branching setup, so if it's set to yes, it's going to say, okay, apologies. It's then going to take us through to this particular area here. Whereas if it's no, it's going to go to the great success section, which is this option here. Then regardless of which option you then choose, you can see here the go to is the end of the form. So it's going to end at that point there. So that's now my form set up. It's got the branching. However, it's looking a bit kind of vanilla. It's a bit plain. It's using the default kind of colors. Now, what I can do is I can style this up a little bit using the theme button across the top. So if I click on theme, you'll see there's a bunch of different pre-built things in here. So there might be some which kind of fit kind of a bit of a scenario that you might want to just pre-choose that. Or you can choose by going into custom theme, you can actually build your own custom theme. So you can choose to upload an image as a background if you wanted to, or you can use a custom color. So if I wanted to use it here, particular color. Yes. Yeah. It's blue color. So we can style this up how we like. So you can have a background image and you can change the colors, but that's really as far as it kind of goes from the kind of the background kind of stylings. As I say, it's all very simplistic. You're not going to get quite the range of styling options and things like that that you do with Power Apps, for example. Now we can also add in a logo. So by clicking in here, I can click on this button in here, so insert image, and I can then choose to insert a logo into here as well if I like. And also I can add a description as we saw before. Now, once we're happy with our kind of styling, so we can add a logo, we can change the colors, we can change the background, we can then preview to see what it looks like. So by clicking on the preview button across the top, this is then going to simulate, and in fact, it's actually going to let me submit data as well. And it's a good way of testing this app. So you can see here, it's now said your details, which is my first kind of section. And I've got my kind of fields here. So I'm going to say name. So I'm going to say Dougie Wood, email address, dougie@balto.co.uk, phone number, a fake phone number in here, and then please tell us the date of your service. So I'm going to select maybe it was last week. So then I'll click on the next button. Now this is taking me through to section 2, which is, if you remember, was rating our service. So I'm going to say it's 5 stars, and was our service provided to you in an accessible manner? I'm going to say yes. Was there any issues with our service? I'm going to say no. And if you remember, that's then going to now move me on to this page, which is a great success, and asking me for a quote. So I'm going to say this was all really good. And then click on submit. And that's then going to submit, and it's going to give me a stock kind of response. Say thanks, your response was then submitted. So this now has submitted my my form. If I click on back, if I go into the responses, you then see my response has been submitted, and I can see some general kind of some details. This isn't like an overview basically, and you can actually generate a link to the summary kind of page as well. So if you wanted to send someone a link to this summary page, you can also send them this copied link as well. But in here, this is where you can see all the kind of responses, all the latest kind of responses to each of the individual questions. It's got some basic kind of charts to kind of show sort of in a kind of sort of pie chart, I guess, of kind of the average kind of responses. But also this is where we can then view all the independent results. So if you click on that, we can then cycle through. So I can select a particular respondent or cycle through the different responses. And I can see from here how long it's taken them to complete that form as well. I can get all of the data out that's been previously submitted by clicking on this open in Excel button, and that will then open up and generate a file for me. So if I just click on this open file, drag this over, I can then see all the previous submissions for this particular feedback form in an Excel document. So I can then choose to sort of filter this down if I wanted to. So let's click on enable editing. So let's say, for example, I'm only interested in things from Ted Jones. I can then filter that down and see that. And obviously then all the data is then readily available to me in Excel for doing any kind of analysis or additional charts or anything like that I wanted to do. Also, I just forgot to mention, in the preview mode, you can also view this in mobile view as well, which I think is really useful because you can then see if someone was to be submitting this on a mobile phone, you can see exactly what it's going to look like as they kind of move through the different pages, which I think is a really nifty kind of way of testing this. So that's now our form then created. So we've now created our form, we've styled our form, and we've tested that we've submitted data through the form, and we've been able to get that out directly into an Excel document. So now actually, how do we share this out with people? So when we click on the send button across the top, this is when we can see the options, which will give us a drop down to say, well, who are we sharing this with? So there's basically a couple of different options here. So we can say anyone can respond, and that literally means anyone in the world. So we can generate this link and we can send it to anybody. They don't have to have Office 365. They don't have to have any licenses. You don't have to pay to license them or anything like that. And they will be able to access this form and they will see it in the exact same way that this preview option shows up here. So just going back into send. So we've also got only people in my organization can respond. So this is perfect for like internal kind of feedback forms, surveys, things like that. Or I can see specific people in my organization. So I can actually specify who those people actually are as well. So if it was only internally to a certain grouping of people, I could select only those people. I'm going to select anyone can respond to this. And it then gives me a kind of URL. So I can choose if I wanted to sort of create a short URL. And then when I copy this, and I'll open this up in private window just to show you what this would look like then as an end user. This is what they would then look like. So this doesn't now know me as kind of Dougie from Valto. This sees me as a completely external person, and this is what it looks like to them. Okay. Now we can generate that as a link. We can choose to send an email. So by clicking on that button, it'll automatically open up a sort of, an email option for me. I can also generate a QR code. Now this is really cool because if you wanted to then download this, you could then attach this to like a poster or something like that that you can then have. So if there's a particular, say, internal campaign going on and you wanted to get people's feedback on that, you can put a QR code on there and someone can scan that then with their smartphone and it would automatically then open up this Microsoft form. Or we can choose to create an iframe, and this is another popular way of using Microsoft Forms. So if we were creating a form which maybe say we were going to embed on a public website, we could then generate this as a HTML embed, and this will give us the iframe that will then embed that directly onto our web page for us. So in most cases, though, it might be that you just want to generate a link, copy the link, and then you would then put that into an email to somebody and say, please give us kind of some feedback on this. So overall, that is Microsoft Forms. So just going back into here then. So the next thing then is we're going to look at is Power Automate. So what we're going to use Power Automate for is actually then automating certain actions when we receive one of our feedback forms that have been submitted. So what is Power Automate? So Power Automate allows you to build automated processes with flows. This allows sort of repetitive and mundane tasks to be automated. So it means that you can create sort of automated notifications or start processing something automatically. So certain features, so there's hundreds of sort of pre-built connectors. Now, what we mean by connector is that it automatically will work with all the kind of Office 365, Microsoft 365 products. So things like SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive, and so on. But it also connects to loads of other third-party applications as well. So it might be, say, for example, if you're using Salesforce or Jira for like task management, maybe you're using a kind of Dynamics 365 or all these other kind of additional products, you can integrate directly with them. So it might be, say, for example, if you receive a form through Microsoft Forms, you might want to automatically then create like a lead or an opportunity inside of Dynamics 365 or Salesforce, or automatically create like a task inside a planner for someone to follow up with that form that's been submitted. So you can customize your automations for your business needs, integration with Microsoft 365 apps, and all those kind of other third parties that I was just mentioning. So what I'm going to look at today is actually creating an automation which will notify a team, a Microsoft team, that this form has actually been submitted. Now, again, this is perfect for kind of allowing people to quickly follow up and feedback with people as and when kind of feedback forms are submitted. So I'm just going to jump back into my browser. So again, Power Automate is one of Microsoft 365's products. We can get to it by going to office.com, going to the app launcher, and then finding Power Automate. Now, when you first come onto Power Automate, I think this is going to be the first page inside of Power Automate. But one thing that I would advise you to take a little look at first is this templates option on the left-hand side. Now, the templates are essentially a library of pre-built workflows that other people have built and then submitted to Microsoft for them to review and kind of sign off to say, yes, this is something that is quite useful to other people. And then they put them in this library. So within here, you can search by all sorts of different things. So you can search by sort of products. So let's say, for example, we were looking for integrations with Salesforce. So I can search for Salesforce and can see here, receive a win notification when a Salesforce opportunity is won. So it will automatically send you out like a push notification on email, for example, or notify a Microsoft team when a new lead is created. So there's some integrations here directly with third parties using these templates straight away. Or you can just search by certain topics. So maybe it's about weather. So you can say post a weather update into a Yammer group every day. Or you could take these templates. The point of these though is you can take these templates and then customize them for what you need them to do. So it might not be that it does 100% of what you want it to do, but it might give you a good starting point that you can then tweak it to what you want it to do. So it might be, say, I always find these sort of ones funny where it says, get today's weather forecast. It's like, well, you could just look out of a window. But actually, sometimes these are just kind of like demonstrating to you the functionality that you can build or automate, and then you can take that on. So let's say, for example, if you were like a construction company or a company that was working outside a lot, you might want to automatically create some Power Automate workflows which run every single morning, so it's at 6 o'clock in the morning, and send out emails to people. And based on the weather, it could automatically sort of say, okay, well, if it's worked out that it's going to be sunny, then it might email people to say, oh, bring your sunglasses and flip-flops, it's going to be sunny. Whereas if it's going to be raining, it's going to say, okay, bring an umbrella and your wellies or something like that. So it's making kind of decisions like that based on kind of automated data. So now we've kind of seen these different kind of templates then. What I'm going to do is I'm going to search for forms. Oops, how have I removed that? And then I can see all the different templates which are working directly with Microsoft Forms. So you can see here I've got notify me, install a response in a SharePoint list. I've got create a task in Planner. So it might be, say, based on the feedback form that you received, you want to automatically create a task in Planner and post a message into Teams for someone to follow up with that. But the one I'm going to use today is this notify the team when a new response is submitted. So I'm going to click on that, and this is going to start up my template. Now, if this is the first time using Power Automate, what this box will do is these will probably kind of go red or say side in. And what this is doing is it's basically building a connection between your Office 365 profile and the sort of the Microsoft Teams or Microsoft Forms in this case. But essentially, if this box doesn't go blue, what you just need to do is click on the sign in button here, and it should just log you in. If not, there might be a pop-up box which will appear. You can put your email address and password in, and then that will then sort of make this go as a green tick. Once we're happy with that, we click on the continue button, and that's then going to spin us up and create us our workflow. Now, to sort of explain a little bit about how kind of workflows work. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into, before I go down this route, I'm just going to give you a quick example inside creating a brand new workflow. Just go into here, we'll skip this. So this is what a flow would look like, completely blank. Now, within Power Automate, there's certain kind of things you need to understand about how Power Automates work. So just like with anything in life, everything has a sort of start, a middle, and an end. And that's the same with these kind of Power Automate workflows. The very starting point is what we refer to as our trigger. So it's our triggering point, what is going to start this workflow. And that trigger could be all sorts of different things. In the case of what we're looking at today, it would actually be a Microsoft Forms trigger, and it would be when a new response is submitted. So that's what's going to be the triggering point of our workflow. However, you can see here, there's all sorts of different connections with all sorts of different products. So within inside Microsoft Teams, sort of Box, if you're using that instead of SharePoint, we have got SharePoint connections, we've got Excel connections, all sorts of different kind of things in here that it natively integrates with. So say, for example, if I wanted to look at a connection for SharePoint, so a triggering point for this might be when an item is created, a document is created, when something's deleted, when a file is modified. These are all triggering points for when you want to start your workflow. So another one that we can use is actually this schedule and its a reoccurrence. So this is almost like creating a timer job. So this basically means we can say, okay, based on interval, so we might say every minute or every week, or sorry, every second, minute, hour, day, week, or month. So we could say maybe once a month, run this, or once a day, run this, for example. There's also some advanced options in here, so you could choose to actually get it to start running at a certain point of the day as well, if you wanted to. So if I just go into the next step here, so that's my trigger. So basically I'm saying my triggering is every once a day, I'm going to start this running. Now this, again, I'm just giving you a bit of an example of how you can build up workflows, and then we're going to go back to the sort of the case study of building up a feedback form. But just to explain then, once you've got a trigger, you can then have multiple, what we refer to as actions. So actions are actually the doing part of it. So what is it actually going to do? And again, you can look this up, let's say, for example, for SharePoint, and we can say we want to create an item in SharePoint, or we want to delete something in SharePoint, for example. What you can also do is you can use what they refer to as controls. So controls will allow you to do things like sort of do until, so do until something is a certain value, or apply to each, which is apply to, let's say, for example, for every document inside of a SharePoint library, do this particular action. Or we can say condition, and this is probably the most used control, where we can say when this value is equal to this value, then this is what I want you to do, else this is what I want you to do. So we can basically say if this value is equal to whatever value, 1, 2, 3, then if it's true, we're going to send an email. If not, we're just going to end the workflow, for example. So just to give you a quick sort of whistle-stop tour then of Power Automate, we've got the trigger. So there's always a trigger, there's always a starting point. There's typically usually controls, which are often like conditions, so you can then make decisions based on certain outputs and values and things like that. And then there you have actions, which are, for example, sending an email. So if I just type in here email, you can see we've got this send an email option, and this is how I can then send an email. So that's my sort of if true option there. Now, Power Automate workflows, they can only actually run for 30 days. So from the point of starting to actually when they'll sort of die from old age is at 30 days. So building in your workflows, you need to kind of think about how that process is going to work. And it doesn't mean some people are saying, well, okay, well, some of our approval processes or things like that, they last way longer than 30 days. And that's okay. You just have to build in maybe potentially multiple different workflows which get triggered on certain kind of events. So it might be that it sends out something to somebody, but actually it's going to sort of lie dormant until, let's say, for example, they go into a particular SharePoint document and sort of say that it's approved, or they go into Planner and mark a task as complete or something like that. So there's almost like a manual trigger somewhere else which starts off that kind of process again. Okay. So I'm just going to go back into my flows area here. And I'm just going to go into my Notify. So now we've got a little bit of an idea about how this kind of works. Now, I've actually now sort of built out a little bit more around this as well. So what I've then done is I've got this as a trigger. So you can see here when a new response is submitted. So this is the triggering point. Now, what this will then do, in fact, let me just go back to our templates and I'll start off by showing you how it will kind of look as a blank option. So what you'll actually do, this is the blank template. So I'll show you once I've got mine kind of configured and things like that, and some additional options that you can do. But this is the template. So the first thing it's going to say is when a new response is submitted, okay, well, which form are we talking about? So from the drop down, we would just need to select the form that it is that we're talking about. So we'll say, for example, customer feedback form. Then we've got our get response detail. So again, we need to specify the form ID of this. So all we need to do is click on this drop down, and we're going to specify the same form as that's a customer feedback. Now, technically, that flow would then run. So once I click on save, this Power Automate workflow would actually be ready to run because it's running this template. But what it's actually doing is it's got it set to say, okay, well, based on once I get a submission, I'm going to post a message into this Microsoft team. So what I now need to do is configure which Microsoft team I want it to send a message to. So I'm going to select from the drop down. I'm going to select, for example, my Dougie team. This is my example team that I'm going to use for today. And then I'm going to specify what channel it's going to go into. So we might have multiple different channels, but by default, every team has a general channel. So we'll just post in there for now. Then we've got our actual message. So this is the actual message which is going to be posted into our Microsoft team. Now, we might want to put in a basic message to say a new feedback form has been submitted. Please see details below. Now, this is where we can then add in, for example, who that person is. So we might want to say the person's name. We might want to add in their email address and whether or not they had any issues. So once we sort of click into here, you can then see on the right-hand side, we've then got what we call dynamic content. Now, this is basically all the content which is being pulled through based on this get response details here. So if I was to search this dynamic box here, so I'm going to select, this is where I'm going to add the person's name. So if I was to type in person's name, sec. Oh, it's because I'm using the wrong form. That is why. So what happens when you have too many test forms knocking around. There we go. So now if I was to search for name, you can then see I've got this name box that appears. So this is now pulling out the field from my feedback form. I've then got, for example, all the other kind of fields I've got. So I've got my email address, so I can pull that through, and whether or not they have any issues. So I'm going to search for issues, and this is then response for, was there any issues with our service? So I'm going to say my options here. So now what I've got is my form that's triggering based on a feedback form being submitted. It's then going to get the full details. So certain actions, sometimes they don't always have the full kind of details inside them. So for example, with Microsoft Forms, you have to use the get response details to get the full kind of fields and things like that. And then I'm posting a message directly into my team, and I'm using these kind of dynamic content options here to post in the name, the email address, and was there any issues. Okay. Now I can take this one step further as well. So this has all the kind of options that most kind of flows would have, a trigger, actions, things like that. But we can also have a condition as well. So it might be that we want to build a condition which is going to kind of escalate this. So for every single feedback form that we submit, we probably always want it to go into our Microsoft team to let everyone know. But let's say, for example, if as part of our feedback form, somebody was to report there was an issue as part of the feedback, we might want to then escalate that to somebody else. So we might want to then send that to sort of the head of department or something to say there's been this particular issue that's reported and somebody needs to follow up with it. So to do that, I'm going to add an action, and then I'm going to come into here and I'm going to search for a condition. Well, I can actually see condition there. So I'm just going to select condition. And then within here, I'm going to say that certain value. So the value is going to be whether or not the issue. So was there an issue with our service? Now, if you remember in the form, let's jump back into the form. This was a yes/no field. So the options is either the output is either going to be yes or it's going to be no. Let's jump back into my workflow in here. So I can say where this is equal to yes. So there was an issue. I then want to send an email. So I'm going to send an email to somebody. So I'm going to say I'm going to send an email in here. And for now, I'm just going to specify an email address. And then I've got a subject. So I'm going to say issue raised on feedback form, and then I'm going to say, hi, issue was raised, please see details below. Now, the cool thing about this as well is we can also copy and paste. So I can copy and paste this same text and all the dynamic content that's inside of it. So I just select all that and copy that. I can move this, just get rid of that now. And I can paste that, and that will automatically paste that content in there as well. So now what it's doing is it's going to trigger when an item is submitted. It's then going to get the full details of the submitted item. It's going to post a message into Teams, and only if there was an issue will it send me an email then to my Outlook to sort of tell me that there's been an issue. Okay. So I'm then going to click on Save, and this is now my workflow then ready to run. So this is now ready to go. Now I'm actually just going to turn off this one. I'm going to switch to the Blue Peter style one that I made earlier. So this is the exact same one that I created before, and this is working the exact same way that it's going to send out those notifications. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back into my form, and I'm going to show you how this now works. So if I click on Preview, I'm going to give a name. So again, I'm going to say the name this time. So it's Joe Blogs, and this is maybe Joe. Whoops. So just timed out there. Let's go back into Preview. So I'm going to say Joe Blogs, the name. So I'm just going to submit full item for you to show you how this works. So and say phone number, the date that it occurred. So maybe it was say time last month. The overall rating of our service. Let's say if this person was really unhappy, so they're going to give us 2 stars. Was the service provided to you in an accessible manner? They're going to say no, and they're going to say where was there an issue? Was there an issue with our service? They're going to say yes. Now, oops. Now they're going to say click on next, and then this is going to bounce us through to our apologies page. Say, sorry to hear you've had an issue with our service. Please tell us how we can improve below. So we might say whatever, I had a really poor service or something like that. So then they click on submit, and that's then going to submit our form. Now, what this will then do is this will start then a workflow in the background. So if I come back into my Power Automate workflow page, if I just refresh this, you'll see it's already complete. It's already run this. So that's how quick it was. So it's already sent this. So if I just jump into here, this is a great place that you can come in and you can troubleshoot how your workflow has been set up. So you can see how it's kind of running when it actually loads. A bit slow. Whilst that's loading anyway, let me just jump into my team, and you can see here it's automatically then posted in here my kind of feedback form to sort of let me know that this is here. And also, hopefully with a bit of luck, jump into my Outlook. You can also see it sent me the email, so it's escalated it. So it knew that there was an issue, and it's gone down the escalation route and sent me the email. So you can see here now, this is the workflow. So when it's been submitted, I've also added in here a variable. The reason why I've added this in here, I'll show you as we go later on. For troubleshooting, sometimes it's really good to be able to actually print out to your workflow exactly what a variable result is, so you can actually see if it's yes or no. So the first thing you need to do is initialize that variable as an action across the top. So you can see here, I've got the response, it's posted the message. So you can see it's posted the message here for me. I've set the variable result, so you can see it's set to yes. So sometimes with these conditions, you'll see here, when you're actually sort of troubleshooting this, the expression result will just return sort of true or false. It won't actually tell you what the value is of this. So sometimes it's good just to have a variable above it, just so you know exactly what is being passed in. So I've passed in that kind of result. And then you can see, because it's true, it's then sent the email. I can see who it's been sent to and how that text has then come through. So that is actually how we have then built our workflow. So just to recap, we've built a Microsoft form, and our Microsoft form is available on, as I say, multiple devices and really quick, simple to create. I then created a Power Automate workflow based on a template, and then I've updated that, so it's also got a condition which is going to send an email if there's a certain result inside of our feedback form. Okay. So following on from that, some additional useful links. So within side of these slides, if you would like a copy of these slides, please feel free to send me an email after this. My email is dougie@valto.co.uk. I'm happy to send that over to you. If you've got any questions, then please feel free to let me know. But here, there's some good links. So there's some more information about Microsoft 365. So creating quizzes and online surveys and polls and questionnaires and all that sort of stuff. There's plenty of information from Microsoft through this link. Also, this is the link to the Power Automate template, so you can take a look over those templates and getting started using them. Also, we've got some upcoming Valto webinars, so it's always worthwhile keeping an eye out on our Eventbrite page, because we run events usually every month or two. And also our Valto YouTube channel. So this video will also be posted onto our YouTube channel, but we also have a bunch of really useful kind of videos and short snippet videos that you might find useful as well. So check us out on there. Some additional services that we can offer you. So we do offer both remote workshops and development for the topics that we discussed today, which is all around digital transformation. So taking potentially something which is an outdated legacy system and then transforming that using Microsoft 365. We offer SharePoint migrations, as well as creating Power Platform strategies. And we also provide training on all of those topics as well, including SharePoint, Teams, and Power Platform. So if you are interested in any of those services, please feel free to email us to discuss that further. We also have support tokens. So what we also offer as well is a sort of pay-as-you-go service for support. So we can provide you support. So maybe you're getting started using things like Power Platform or Microsoft Forms or SharePoint or Power Automate, and you just need a sort of helping hand now and again. Now, what we can do with that is we can support you using these tokens, where basically one token is 1 hour of our time, and you can call them off in half-an-hour increments. Our time is available between Monday to Friday from 8:30 till 5 o'clock UK time. And it's something that you've got on in the bank that you can call off as and when you kind of need us. So I'm going to jump over now just for some Q&As and just see if there's any kind of questions that we've got in our Q&A board. So question there, where can we find the recording of the webinar? So it will actually be sent out following this. So we're going to send an email out to everybody, but also it will be on our YouTube channel as well. So please feel free to go on there and have a look at some of our previous webinars as well. What are the questions we've got here? Can you submit forms into SharePoint? Yes, so there are actually options inside of those templates we were looking at before. So if you were to search for Microsoft Forms and SharePoint inside those templates options, you'll probably find somebody's already built a workflow which says something like on submission of a form, send the data off into SharePoint. But then, yeah, you can submit that into a list if that's what you're using as your your database for storing those kind of questions. What else have we got here? Do external people need Office 365 to submit a form? No, they don't at all. And that's really one of the key kind of benefits of using this system, is that anybody you can generate that sort of link and you can send it to anybody you like externally, and they'll be able to click on that link and submit the data through the form. What we got here? How can we change the thank you message on submission of a form? Good question, actually. Let me just jump back into forms. Yeah. So actually, one thing we didn't look at before is there's a little settings option. By clicking the 3 dots across the top up here, you've got this settings option. And by clicking on settings, you can see there's a couple of different options in here. And one of those options somewhere in here is this customize the thank you message. So you can choose to tick that if it's not already ticked, and you can change this option. If I was to put in here, say, Thank you for submitting this form. We will be in touch shortly. So that just means you can personalize that message, and it just means then you've got something that is a bit more custom than just sort of thank you for submitting or something like that. So there's a question there about, can you explain more about the validity of the flows? Do you have to create or validate it again every 30 days? No, that's not necessarily what I mean by the 30-day limit. So there are things sometimes with like connection issues and things like that. So sometimes Power Automate can sort of trip over itself if, say, because Power Automate workflows are running in the context of the user's account. So like when I created those flows before, they were running in the context of me, Dougie Wood. And that's typically why I tend to advise people use service accounts. So you create an account called, say, for example, automation at, and then the name of your company, or Power Automate at Valto or something like that. And then running them from there as a kind of context. But sometimes, say, for example, if the password changes that account or something like that, occasionally it can break the connection inside of Power Automate, and you'll need to go back into your workflow, and it will guide you through that. Your workflow will be screaming out to you to say the connection's broken. You won't even be able to submit it without clicking on the reconnect kind of options. But what I was meaning more about that 30 days limit is that a workflow can only, almost like an instance of itself. So if I just jump back into Power Automate in here. So you can see each one of these are instances of the workflow. So let's say, for example, if this was something, and you can see here, all of mine are finishing within 2 seconds of being created. But let's say, for example, if this was something that was a lot more long-winded, it's like a long-winded approval system or something like that, then each individual instance of the workflow can only live for 30 days. So from the point of starting, this workflow will only sit here in a pending state until basically 30 days, and then it will kind of end. So that's why it's worth kind of considering how your workflows work, and if you can almost set off a multiple chain of kind of workflows. So dependent on certain things, when someone marks something as complete, maybe it starts a secondary workflow just to sort of extend out that kind of period of time. So hopefully that answers your question there. Just look, see if there's any further questions. I don't think there's any further questions from there. But if you do have any sort of follow-up questions, or if you're looking to get support and assistance using Microsoft 365, then please feel free to reach out to me at any point. Okay, thank you for your time.